Let's now shift our attention to what is unfolding in the state of Israel. Now remember, The Handmaid's Tale is an acclaimed dystopian novel which, like the television series that it inspired, depicts the life of women as nothing more than child-bearing slaves. Now, with the handmaids being forced to wear red in public. And now, over the past few weeks, this imagery from the international bestseller by the Canadian author Margaret Atwood has been adopted in what are known as the handmaid marches that are being staged across the country to protest against the far-right coalition of Benjamin Netanyahu's proposed judicial changes, which seek to, in many ways, turn the Israeli judiciary subservient to the Israeli executive. Our correspondent Jody Cohen went to one such handmaids protest to find out more.
Thursday has been billed as a day of paralysis by people opposed to the government's judicial reform proposals. In response to 12 weeks of protests, which have seen hundreds of thousands of people take to the streets in 150 locations around the country, the coalition says it has paused all of its bills except one for 1 month.
The handmaids' protest is shortly to begin in Tel Aviv, here in the main area by the landmark Azrieli Towers. Hundreds of women and men, for the first time, are joining in this protest.
However, the protests are continuing. Possibly the most impactful visual of these protests has been the image of hundreds of women dressed in handmaids' robes, bowing their heads and walking slowly in formation. Bonot Alternativa, which means building an alternative, is the group behind these images. Despite the coalition's pause, they have no plans to stop the protests. I spoke with one of the organisers of the handmaids' marches. Now, Hadass, can you tell us about the objectives of the protest?
We are marching these days in order to draw a red line saying to this standing coalition, we will not agree for hurting or harming or dismantling women's rights.
I also spoke with some of the march participants, who included men as well as women.
So we're demonstrating today hand in hand with men and women together to fight for social equality and gender equality in Israel. We believe this isn't just a women's issue and this concerns the lives of us all.
I think that the fact that Netanyahu and most Likud supporters are not really religious, some of them are more conservative but are not religious.
We feel more and more that these big demonstrations are making a big impact on society. Every week they are getting bigger.
While the Prime Minister himself and most of his Likud supporters are not religiously observant, there is concern among the protesters that in the coalition's bids to affirm religious rights, their rights and women's rights in particular could be impacted. The Handmaid's Tale protest in Israel has even caught the attention of the book's author, who has expressed her astonishment on Twitter over the march. And with the opposition rejecting the coalition's amendments, these protests are set to continue. This is Jody Cohen for WION World is One.
All right, joining us live on this broadcast is Jody Cohen, is joining us live from Israel. Jody, tell us more as to what is happening in the protest today in Israel.
Hi, Mohammed. Yes, so I'm still in Tel Aviv. The handmaids protest has now moved on. This was billed as a day of paralysis, and we've certainly seen some road blocking here today. Some of this was done in coordination with the police. Where it wasn't done in coordination with the police, we have seen at times water cannons used here in Tel Aviv and for the first time in Haifa. We've also heard that one protester hit the minister and former head of the Shin Bet, Avi Dichter, on the head, and that protester has been arrested too. In Caesarea, protesters took over the helipad there, and 500,000 people were predicted to come out to the streets. They've been protesting at the homes of some of the coalition ministers, also at the airport for the third week in a row, as Prime Minister Netanyahu is set to travel to the UK for a meeting with the Prime Minister there. We're also hearing that the protesters are going to be marching to Bnei Brak this evening. Now, that is a sensitive area because that's a largely ultra-Orthodox community where they support the ultra-Orthodox parties in the coalition. Now, there's strong support there for the judicial reform plans. They largely feel that the judiciary has taken on too much power and that they have been largely anti-religious for the past several years. In the meantime, opposition MP Shili Tropper has been trying to get an agreement ahead of the Memorial Day, which is the day in memorial for the fallen soldiers of Israel, to say that that day should be free of protests. Former Defense Minister Benny Gantz has agreed. Nir Barkat, the trade minister from the Likud party, has agreed. But leader of the opposition, apparently Yair Lapid, hasn't yet signed on. And in the meantime, the government is urging the leaders of the ultra-Orthodox Bnei Brak community, the rabbis and the community leaders, to speak to their congregants and urge them not to go out and speak to them, to confront the protesters, just to let the protesters pass.
Absolutely indeed, Jody Cohen. Thank you very much indeed for joining us from Tel Aviv and getting us all those insights there. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.